Sana Pashankar from Bloomberg.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this. A question for Dr. Young. Obviously, it seems like an enormous amount of thought and effort and scientific consideration
There we go.
has been put into preparing for the lunar flyby. I was just wondering, when did the lunar science team at NASA start making preparations for the flyby? Did it start like when the astronauts were selected in 2023 or after Artemis 1? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Not specifically for Artemis 2, but for Artemis science operations in general, it's been a number of years that we've been preparing and integrating with flight operations. I will say flight operations has been incredibly welcoming. I think it's a testament to the fact that, you know, science is one of the fundamental pillars of Artemis, and, you know, specifically for Artemis 2, you know, Rick and Judd and Jeff have been nothing but, you know, really welcoming, knowing that, of course, our destination for this mission is, of course, the moon. Specifically for Artemis 2 science preparations, we did, you know, actually start working with the crew pretty quickly after they were selected, more in a classroom training environment, but that did kick off the discussions for our team about how we wanted to develop our science objectives given the mission profile characteristics as we learned more about that, about how the mission profile was evolving. And so that enabled us to really jump off on establishing our science objectives, and you know, with me being selected as the lead for the lunar science for this mission, I was really able to build out our amazing team pulled from several different NASA centers, experts in lunar science, geology, visualization, geographic information systems, teams here at the Johnson Space Center who supported Earth observations from the International Space Station that are actually responsible for developing that gorgeous lunar targeting plan. And so the plans for the flyby profile as we're going to execute it tomorrow probably really ramped up in earnest just over a year ago, but prior to that there was a lot of work going in with the flight operations team for integrating our new science officer console into mission control, as well as building out the science evaluation room.
Okay, we'll come back into the phone, or pardon me, to the room. Irene, and then we'll go to Tom.
Thanks. Irene Klotz with Aviation Week. For Rick, a couple of flight operations questions. First is, which two astronauts attempted to don the suits quickly, and how much faster did that happen compared to the nominal donning? And on the manual flight demonstration, did the exercise today complete all the, or maybe last night, sorry, I've lost track of days. Did that complete all of the manual operations that you're expecting, and what have you learned so far about the nuances of Orion's handling that you want to kind of continue more studies on post-flight? Thanks.
Of course, thanks for the question there. As far as who donned the suit rapidly, that was Reed and Victor, and then Christina and Jeremy donned it in the quote-unquote nominal time frame. The rapid donning was attempted to be done in about 15 minutes, which is pretty swift, and again, that corresponds with the time that Orion has to feed the leak and maintain cabin pressure before we can get the crew safely in a pressurized environment. As far as the manual piloting that we have left, we have another test on Wednesday that will be in the crew's afternoon after they build the radiation shelter. And then finally, with respect to the handling qualities, I sat in the back of Mission Control during the proximity operations demo. I had just worked the ascent shift, but I couldn't stay away, and I had to watch. And it was pretty spectacular to watch Orion pretty much stop on a dime. You know, Victor would deflect the hand controller, release it, and you saw the ICP, the video of the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. You'd see it move and then just stop right on a dime. And so I would say we've got some pretty well-engineered control law on Orion.
Tom.
Hi guys, Tom Costello with NBC News. Thanks for so many great news conferences. I have just a basic question with, I don't know, a PhD in rocket science. Can you explain for the audience how it is that when it goes into the moon's gravitational pull, and then when you come around the other side, the Earth's gravitational pull can take over or becomes stronger? You help me understand that, and that would be great. And then second of all, can I just confirm with the photographic number of targets you have, and how many photos you expect to take. Sorry if I missed that.
All right, I'll take a swing at the orbital mechanics here. So the translunar injection burn essentially raised our apogee, the height of our orbit above Earth, to a point where we target it such that the moon will, as it orbits Earth, we kind of intercept the moon and we allow the moon's gravity to take over. And then because we're not entering into lunar orbit, we coast past apogee relative to Earth, and we start falling back to Earth. And eventually, the Earth's gravity is going to take over and bring the spacecraft back into the atmosphere.
As for targets,
I was just going to add one more thing to that, is that as you enter, as we talked about, the stronger influence of the moon's gravity, we're out at some distance, and so when it starts to pull on us, we go into a circular, kind of an arc around the moon, and that kind of slingshots us. You can imagine a slingshot around, but then that kind of starts to overshoot and come back, and then by the time you might, go somewhere else, we're now pulled into Earth's gravity again, right? So it starts to pull us back. So it's the interplay of those two gravity fields that really drive this beautiful dance of the spacecraft.
The number of targets, I'll have to get the exact number, but it's in the range of 35 targets. We actually do plan to put out the list of targets hopefully tomorrow morning so that the public can follow along. I will caveat that with that's a plan, right? And they're going to flexibly execute that plan based on what they see. But we will put out kind of the list that they have been, studying too. As for number of pictures, it's a great question. The only way we can kind of make a guess at that is from the mission simulations we've done on the ground, where they're taking pictures of not the real moon. I have a feeling that the real moon is going to be a bigger draw. I would expect thousands of pictures that the crew themselves will take, not to mention the imagery that we will be taking with the Orion vehicle cameras.
Okay, we'll go here and then back to Will Robinson-Smith after that.
Hi, Emily Martin from CLA's Fast Friends. Thank you so much for doing this. I was wondering, which specific science questions do you hope this flyby will bring? I mean, will answer.
Hi.
The Apollo samples ultimately answered the question of the origins of the moon. What do you hope
What?
this data
The hotel
gathered
closed
by,
that in Mom's cars.
these human eyes will
Sure.
answer?
Sure.
And also, I was
Okay.
wondering if you are
I'll get
planning
it
on
later.
taking a photo of Orion with LRO, if it's even feasible.
Can you do it after
So
you
on
learn?
the science objective
Yeah.
question, we do
I mean,
have 10
after
science
you learn
objectives,
shit.
all of which we feel are accomplishable, tackleable by the crew with the lunar targeting
I
plan
really
as
want
written.
to
The
get
lunar
those
targeting plan
clothes.
does actually
So you
address
also
all
got
10
some
of our
stuff?
objectives. But as for the ones that I'm most excited about,
She got doggy slippers.
I am really excited for,
two
our
pairs
number
of
one priority
flip-flops.
objective is, color
And-
preferences and albedo.
Yeah.
Right? This is something that human eyes are just
also
incredibly
got
good at teasing out
a rope.
nuances about. And again, forgive me again
Cool.
for the photometry deep dive, but again,
What's
the
your
ability of a crew
name?
member to look at
What
the
am I
surface in different
doing?
illumination conditions as the Orion
I
spacecraft is moving across the surface of the
am-
moon will allow them to
Because I was
understand
under my
morphology and
grandma's bed.
texture, and therefore
I can fit under
origin,
there.
process and origin. I mean, you heard
Under.
even from farther away, Reed
Liv
say
and me
yesterday,
can
I can
both
see much
fit
more topography around Tycho than I could in the visualizations. As he's getting closer, he's seeing that 3D effect start to realize, and when they get even closer and they have that sort of extreme flyby profile over a number of hours,
No, I can't do it right
they're
now
really gonna
because
be
I'm
able
doing
to tease
something in
out
my
that
game.
dynamic between
After this
topography,
thing,
surface texture, morphology, and color and albedo.
Yeah,
and
but
how
I'm
those
kinda
things
like-
overlap. There are some targets on our targeting plan where that's specifically an objective.
I'm at a critical
reducing
moment
the
here,
correlation
and I'm
between
trying not to
color and
crash.
topography. And a negative observation, not seeing it, is a science result, right? And so we do really focus on this unique profile that this
Huh?
mission has. I think
I
you talk
can't
about the
actually
question, well,
pause
you're
this
so far
game.
away, what can you even do? That's actually an asset
Yeah.
for our science objectives. They're going to have
Not
this full disk view,
so
and
much,
the rate
no.
at which they're moving and the illumination changes that they'll experience in several hours enable our science. They don't detract from it. As for complementary observations, yes, we do
Okay.
plan to have complementary observations with the Lunar Reconnaissance
Dinner
Orbiter.
is
We also have
peanut
other
butter jelly,
complementary
cheese,
science
and orange.
investigations, including citizen science here from
Sounds
scientists on
good.
Earth who are going to be looking for impact
But you're not
flashes
gonna have that.
or new craters that are forming on the
No.
surface of the moon, just like the Artemis
you're
2
gonna have
astronauts will be
leftovers
looking
or
for. So lots of
Yeah,
chances for
probably.
coordinated
Sorry, Steve.
observations
It's okay.
We're gonna have a slumber party with Jasmine once
Okay,
we
Will,
reach our
and then
next
we'll
place.
go back to the phones.
You're
for
gonna do what?
We're
additional
gonna have
questions.
a
Thank you, Rachel.
slumber
Will
party
Robinson Smith with Spaceflight
with the
Now. Thank you all
Jasmine
for
when she gets
taking
to
the
our
time
new
today. A
apartment.
couple to Rick, if I
We
may,
don't know
about
where it is,
the Ox
because she
demonstration.
doesn't, because Jasmine doesn't
Please
know
correct
where
me
it
if I'm
is.
wrong,
Oh.
but it sounded like at one
And I don't know
point
where
there
it
was a
is.
plan
Mom
to
doesn't know
lower
where it
wind
is.
pressure
20
in the
degrees
environment.
pitch down.
Can you talk about when and why that changed? And then
I guess that's
the
about
life limit
20
for
degrees.
the astronauts in the suits we've heard is 6 days. Can you go into some detail about what the
How
life
can
limiter
you
is for
turn
them?
off
Obviously, the crew is now within 6 days nominally of returning to Earth, so they needed to got that latitude.
How do
Can
you not lose your game
just
if you
go into
turn it
some
off?
explanation about why the 6 days, what creates that bracket?
Sure. You're correct.
Oh my
that,
gosh, I
we are
have to
planning
start my
on
checklist.
decreasing the
Checklist.
cabin pressure
1
of
minute
Orion that
retro.
was always
Can we deduct our kids' braces?
I do not know.
All right, I'll be down
I was
in a
asking
few
an H&R
minutes.
Block tax pro. His actual live human help for no extra cost.
It's going to make doing our own taxes online so easy.
There's also this AI tax assist that's available 24/7 for questions.
So you can pretty much get help whenever you need it?
What?
What do they know about crochet?
Do your own taxes online with H&R Block and get unlimited expert help and AI tax assist at no additional cost.
and the ability to supply oxygen to the crew. Those tanks are only so big, and they were sized for that contingency.
Okay, we'll take several questions from the phone. Next up is Jackie Mogensen from Scientific American.
Hi, thanks for this. I was wondering, on the lunar flyby, I understand that there are a number of things that the astronauts have been training to see, but I was curious what you would say are kind of the wish list items of what would be really cool to see but are not a guarantee. Thank you.
Ooh, I would think, honestly, a big one is just the amount of color they're going to be able to see and where and when they see it. Again, negative observations, not seeing something is science. That is something we are learning. So I think we have a lot of questions about where and how subtle color hues will pop out to the crew. We have guesses, of course. We have educated guesses based on what we know about the lunar surface, especially the far side, which haven't had, human eyes on it before. But we don't know what to expect. We've provided guidance to them on where we think the best places are to, make those observations, but this is exploration, right? And while we have imagery, amazing data from orbiting spacecraft, it's these nuanced observations that we're lacking. And so, this is discovery, right? And we're asking questions that we don't always know the answer to, and that's, some of the value of what these Artemis missions bring.
Next is Marcia Smith with Space Policy Online.
Thanks so much for taking my questions. One question I think is to Rick, and could you just clarify about the toilet situation? Have you permanently fixed that, or is it that every certain number of days or something you're going to have to turn the spacecraft towards the sun in order to make sure that that vent doesn't freeze? And this is a permanent solution for this mission or for all the Orion missions? Could you just clarify the situation on that? And on a completely different front, I'm just curious to Kelsey and to Lori, maybe wearing your planetary science hat. So when you have the astronauts looking at the far side of the moon and seeing them with their eyes, which LRO can't do, is there any chance you're going to spot something there that is so fascinating that it's going to change maybe plans for CLIPS missions or something, to send CLIPS missions there to investigate? What do you think the odds are that you'll see something that you really didn't expect?
All right. Well, as for the first part of your questions, there are no liens against use of the toilet. The crew members are able to use the toilet, but we are still trying to figure out the wastewater vent line problem. It's kind of a complex engineering issue when you expose a liquid to vacuum. It's a pretty chaotic environment, and there's a lot of theory and textbook work done when you assume it's pure water being exposed to a vacuum. But when you introduce the variable of it being wastewater, there's other complex phenomena that we don't quite yet understand that are factoring into that vent line. And so we're still working through that. This is a good opportunity to learn now on a shorter mission. And, if changes are needed to be made to the spacecraft, we have opportunities before Artemis 3 to make those changes.
Kelsey, surprising.
Rick, do you want to no. I think, of course, we don't know what we don't know, and there's a reason. I think your question kind of hits at the heart of why we explore, right? I mean, we can send reconnaissance missions to the bottoms of the ocean and to the poles and to Mars and to the outer solar system. And I like to think that planetary scientists, are pretty good at their jobs and pretty good at outlining plans of what they think we will expect to see. But we in the science community like to talk about multiple working hypotheses, right? We take all available data and we form these different hypotheses, and we make a plan to go address and buy down those hypotheses. And so, do we have guesses about what they're going to see on the far side? Yes. Do I have solid confidence in exactly what they're going to see? Absolutely not. That is why we send people out into the cosmos to explore in the first place. And so, I think it's important to remember that, what the crew are going to do tomorrow is the first step in this exploration. And I think it's important to remember that, we don't always know exactly what they're going to see. We have lunar reconnaissance orbiting spacecraft data of the surface. We understand, what it's made out of. We understand the topography, but we don't know what the crew are going to see in these specific illumination conditions from a scientific perspective, and that's exciting. It's part of the exploration mission. It's one of the main charges of the Spaceflight Agency.
Okay, we'll go there.
Thank you, Rod Pyle at Astro Magazine. This is drilling in a bit, so I apologize if I'm peeling the onion too much. This is for Kelsey. During Apollo, if you look at interviews with some of the geology backroom guys, they were operating almost entirely from audio, and the video was really low quality. So now that you've got the spectacular video imagery coming back, do you think you'll have a real-time feedback loop of evolving science targets while they're doing the pass behind the moon? Thank you.
My goodness, what a good question. This is going to allow me to nestle into my happy place of science and operations. So the answer to your last question of if we will have targets evolve over time, the answer is, for tomorrow, we're likely not going to be, oh my gosh, scrap the back half of the plan and add in all of these new targets. However, in looking to the future, as Lori commented on right at the beginning, for future missions, when we have longer stays, both in orbit and on the lunar surface, that longer-term presence will enable us to flex the plan and enable and empower the crew, of course, within the requisite safety constraints, to audible scientifically about the types of samples and the types of observations they're making. And so tomorrow, the science evaluation room is going to have that future in mind, right? They're going to be listening to what the crew has to say, and they're going to be passing up follow-up questions. And, oh my gosh, we heard you notice Grimaldi. That was not one of your targets, but what you just said was amazing. While the viewing attitude still permits, could you provide some additional words? That is absolutely in scope for tomorrow, depending on what we hear from the crew. Your question also gives me a good opportunity to share with you all what tomorrow is going to look like for those of us watching here on Earth. We will see video streamed from the Orion vehicle cameras. So we will kind of see the moon at the distance that, of course, the crew can see it at. We will also, at times during the flyby, go kind of on board with them the way that we have been experiencing the last few days with that interior camera. Although, I think I mentioned this yesterday, it's going to be very dark in there, so it will not look as crisp and beautifully lit as a lot of the footage that Lori and Rick showed earlier today, but it will give you a sense of being on board with them. And then you are not going to hear them all the time during the flyby. You will hear several times an hour a status of how they're moving through the lunar targeting plan and giving some descriptions. Those science sit reps, as we're calling them, will not come from the prime crew that are at the windows at the time. It will come from one of the two crew members who are not, plugged into their crew tablets and really down and in on the observations. It will be a third person coming to an additional window to make those descriptions. So you'll see the streamed video, you'll hear from them several times an hour, and then as soon as we can after the flyby ends, our team will be working as a part of the flight control team to get those downlink requests in quickly so we can get all the audio down and get as many images as we can overnight and then throughout the rest of the mission.
Okay.
Hi, Lisa Grossman from Science News. I have two questions for Kelsey. One is, I
public at any point?
We're working on how to archive that for the public after the mission. We're not going to be able to do it within the mission, but it is such a big part of lunar science in this mission. And, for those familiar with the Science Mission Directorate, you'll know that, we take very seriously the charter to make every data set relevant to lunar science accessible to the public. And we have a charter to do that for this mission within 6 months post-mission. And so we will be working hard to identify how we can get this tool out to the public, given its criticality for lunar science. So what they will see on the Earth is Asia, Africa, and Oceania. And so for anybody listening here who is in Asia, Africa, or Oceania, you can go out and look at the near side of the moon at the exact same time that the crew will be looking at the Earth. For those of us not in those places, we can go out later and still see the same views, but for those in Asia, Africa, and Oceania, know that the crew will be smiling down on you around Earthrise and Earthset.
Okay, we'll take one final question and then go ahead and conclude. Marcia.
Hi, Marcia Dunn, Associated Press. I'm looking for some numbers, please. What's the latest numbers on the maximum distance that Orion will be from Earth? What's the closest distance to the moon? I think I've heard 4,000 miles. And the total, the illumination for the far side, is it about 20% tomorrow? I forget the numbers. And it also, Dr. Young, take off your science hat for a moment and wax poetic about the fact that tomorrow astronauts are going to be flying around the moon for the first time and so on.
So I'll take some of your first ones here, Marcia. Make sure I get them all, so let me know if I miss some. So a little before 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, we're going to pass the Apollo 13 distance record by humans, and that record is 248,655 statute miles. That's when we break the record. And then tomorrow evening around 7:07 p.m. Eastern, we will reach the farthest distance from Earth at a distance of 252,760 miles. That's 4,105 miles farther than Apollo 13. You asked about the percent of illumination. My recollection is close to like 21%.
Yeah, the caveat there, though, is that that is the percent of the far side that is illuminated at closest approach. So when they are closest to the moon, they will see 21% of the far side. On their approach, as you saw in that visual, you will see the full disk. It will include a big section of the near side as well as that section of the far side.
Essentially, half of the moon is always illuminated. And so they will see the full 180 degrees that's illuminated as far as far side. Yeah. Thanks, Kelsey.
Yeah, I think it's at closest approach, it's 4,070 statute miles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then do you want to wax poetic?
Oh my gosh, of course, always. I mean, first of all, I will be on console tomorrow, so I will be locked in and fully in operations and execution mode. But, sitting here today, the day before the flyby, I was a kid who loved to play outdoors, and I was a kid who loved to, while playing outdoors, look up at the sky. Being outdoors and exploring the environment around me was a massive part of my childhood. I'm the mom of 2 young kids, and my youngest is right in the phase now where she looks up at the moon at night and just screams moon every time she sees it. She just stops what she's doing and points up and yells moon. And it really just, I swear I do not push her to do this. This is a natural instinct. But, I think it goes to show that people all over the world connect with the moon. This is something that every single person on this planet can understand and connect with. Of course, I'm focused on my kids in my house, but I know that people all over the world have their own sense of connection with the moon. Specifically, also, we will get an eclipse tomorrow, and I think everybody on Earth, or a lot of people on Earth, have connections to partial or full solar eclipses. I'm wearing my eclipse earrings today. We're approaching the 2-year anniversary of the 2024 North American. I have a lot of emotions, to be totally honest with you, wrapped up in this mission and the specific timing of this mission. And I think my overwhelming takeaway is just, yes, I'm a geologist and a planetary scientist, and I have worked with this group for so long, and I know that the data we will get back will inspire the next generation of scientists and explorers, but it will also bring the moon closer and unite all of us, where we can have this tangible touch point to the moon, and that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow.
Take a shower.
And so as
Okay.
a scientist and as a mom and as a citizen
Yeah,
of this planet,
Can you do the
looking
clean the
forward to
kitchen?
tomorrow. I hope all
Yeah.
of you are as well.
Well, that's a
Robin
wonderful
wants you
way
to get the big blue
conclude. I
tote
want
out
to
of
thank
my
our
trunk.
participants for
But
Yeah, I
being
know.
here
not a
today.
rush,
We're going to
'cause I
go
don't wanna
ahead and
dig through
pop
that
up
stuff.
onto the screen
Yeah.
a graphic showing all the events for tomorrow. Our special coverage begins